What if the reason your battles feel heavier is because you've been fighting them alone? What if your strength was never meant to carry the weight of your destiny? There is a level of help that effort alone cannot unlock, and a kind of victory that only comes through divine partnership. You've prayed, struggled, and tried your best, yet something still feels incomplete. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear may change how you fight, how you pray, and how you win your battles forever. There are battles in life that strength alone cannot win. There are seasons where intelligence, connections, and personal effort seem insufficient, and the more you struggle, the more exhausted you become. Many people are not failing because they are weak. They are failing because they are fighting alone. Life was never designed to be lived by human effort only. When you attempt to handle spiritual, emotional, and destiny matters with physical strength alone, frustration becomes inevitable. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that silence from heaven means absence of help. No, divine help is not absent. It is often unengaged. Help responds to understanding. Help responds to alignment. Help responds to intentional engagement. You must realize that there is a realm of assistance that becomes active when a person stops striving in isolation and begins to partner with the divine. The first step to engaging divine help effectively is humility. Pride says, I can handle this on my own. But humility says, I need help beyond my strength. When a person acknowledges their limitation, they create room for supernatural intervention. Many destinies remain delayed not because help is unavailable, but because dependence is absent. Heaven responds to surrender more than struggle. Secondly, you must learn the power of intentional prayer. Prayer is not just talking, it is alignment. It is a spiritual communication that connects your situation to a higher dimension of intervention. When prayer is done with understanding, it becomes a channel through which strength, wisdom, and direction flow. Casual prayer produces casual results, but intentional prayer engages divine attention. When you pray with clarity, consistency, and faith, you are no longer fighting alone. Another vital key is faith over fear. Fear isolates you, but faith connects you to help. Fear magnifies the problem, while faith magnifies the possibility of intervention. Even when circumstances look overwhelming, choosing faith invites divine backing into your situation. That a faith is not denial of reality, it is confidence in a higher reality that can change your situation. You must also understand the importance of alignment. Divine help flows faster when your desires align with purpose and righteousness. When your intentions, actions, and decisions are in harmony with higher principles, assistance becomes easier to manifest. Misalignment creates resistance, but obedience creates access. When you follow divine instructions, even small ones, you position yourself for strategic help. Spiritual sensitivity is another critical factor. Many times, help comes as guidance, ideas, warnings, or subtle directions, but people miss it because they are not spiritually attentive. When you cultivate sensitivity through prayer, reflection, and discipline, you begin to discern the ways help is being released into your life. Not all help comes as dramatic miracles. Sometimes it comes as wisdom, timing, and opportunities. Persistence is the final key. Engaging divine help is not a one-time event, it is a lifestyle. There will be moments when answers seem delayed, but persistence keeps the channel open. Consistent faith, consistent prayer, and consistent alignment eventually produce visible results. Those who receive extraordinary help are often those who refuse to quit in the place of engagement. Come, you must stop carrying burdens that were never meant for your strength alone. When you engage divine help, come, you exchange anxiety for assurance, confusion for direction, and weakness for strength. You are no longer struggling in isolation. You are supported by a higher power that sees beyond your limitations. Today, make a conscious decision. Stop fighting alone. Lift your voice in intentional prayer. Align your heart with purpose. Choose faith over fear. Stay sensitive to guidance. Remain persistent even when results are not immediate. Come, because the moment you truly engage divine help, battles that once felt impossible begin to shift. Come, doors that seemed closed begin to open, and strength that you never had begins to flow into your life. Recognizing your limitations and the need for divine assistance is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of spiritual intelligence. Many people live under the illusion that strength means self-sufficiency, that maturity means handling everything alone, and that resilience means never admitting they need help. Come, but the truth is that human capacity is limited, and life presents battles that cannot be solved by effort, knowledge, or experience alone. There are situations that drain emotional strength, confuse the mind, and weaken the will. And in such moments, the greatest error is to keep struggling in isolation while ignoring the higher help available. When a person refuses to acknowledge their limitations, pride silently takes control. Pride does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it appears as silent endurance, as constant self-reliance, or as the belief that asking for help is unnecessary. That this mindset creates pressure on the soul because the individual begins to carry burdens that exceed their natural strength. Over time, this leads to frustration, anxiety, and spiritual exhaustion. The more one tries to force solutions through personal strength alone, the more overwhelming the situation becomes. Come, because certain battles are not designed to respond to human effort. Understanding your limitations brings clarity. It helps you differentiate between what effort can solve and what requires divine intervention. There are challenges that discipline can fix. There are problems that knowledge can solve. Come, but there are also invisible battles connected to destiny, timing, favor, and purpose that only divine assistance can resolve. When a person gains this awareness, that they stop wasting energy fighting the wrong way and begin to seek help from a higher dimension of wisdom and power. Another important aspect of recognizing your limitations is emotional honesty. Many people pretend to be strong while silently breaking within. They smile outwardly but carry heavy internal burdens. They suppress their fears, doubts, and pain, believing that endurance alone would produce results. However, transformation begins the moment a person becomes honest about their struggles. When you admit that you are tired, confused, or overwhelmed, you create space for genuine help to enter your life. Denial blocks intervention. Come, but honesty invites assistance. This recognition also shifts your posture from control to surrender. Surrender is not giving up on life. It is releasing the illusion that you are the ultimate source of solutions. It is the understanding that while effort is necessary, it is not sufficient. When you surrender your struggles in humility, you acknowledge that there is a greater wisdom that sees beyond your perspective, and a greater power that can strengthen you beyond your natural ability. This posture of humility becomes a gateway for divine involvement. Furthermore, come, recognizing your limitations protects you from burnout. Many people collapse not because they lack potential, but because they carry responsibilities emotionally, mentally, and spiritually without engaging divine strength. They rely solely on their intelligence, planning, and physical energy, forgetting that the human system has limits. When divine assistance is ignored, life becomes a continuous cycle of pressure and recovery. But when you consciously depend on higher help, you experience inner rest even in the midst of challenges. It also cultivates deeper faith. When you admit that you cannot do everything on your own, you naturally begin to trust in a higher source of guidance and support. This trust shifts your mindset from anxiety to assurance. Instead of asking, "How will I survive this alone?" your perspective changes to, "There is help available beyond what I can see." That shift alone releases peace into the heart and steadiness into the mind. In addition, recognizing your limitations refines your decision making. It makes you more sensitive to direction, more open to correction, and more willing to seek guidance before acting. Rather than rushing into battles blindly, you begin to move with discernment, understanding that wisdom from a higher source can prevent unnecessary struggles. This awareness reduces mistakes and aligns your actions with purpose. Ultimately, the moment you truly recognize your limitations is the moment you stop pretending to be invincible and start positioning yourself for supernatural support. It is the transition from isolated struggle to empowered dependence. From silent pressure to conscious partnership with divine strength, where your weakness no longer becomes a disadvantage, but a channel through which greater help flows into every area of your life. Building a consistent prayer life with understanding is more than a routine activity. That is the intentional cultivation of a living connection with the divine that transforms how a person navigates life's challenges. Many people pray occasionally, emotionally, or only in moments of crisis. But inconsistency weakens spiritual engagement and limits the flow of strength, direction, and intervention. When prayer becomes a habit instead of a reaction, it establishes stability within the spirit and clarity within the mind. Even when external circumstances remain uncertain, consistency in prayer trains the heart to depend on a higher source rather than fluctuating emotions or changing situations. Without consistency, a person's spiritual life becomes unstable, rising only when problems intensify and fading when comfort returns. This pattern creates a cycle where prayer is driven by pressure instead of relationship. However, when prayer is practiced daily with discipline, it builds endurance, focus, and spiritual sensitivity that remains steady regardless of circumstances. The soul becomes anchored, and the mind becomes less vulnerable to fear, confusion, and anxiety. Understanding is what gives prayer depth and effectiveness. Prayer is not merely repeating words or expressing complaints. There is a conscious alignment of thoughts, desires, and intentions with divine wisdom. When prayer is done without understanding, it often becomes mechanical and powerless. But when it is done with awareness, it becomes strategic and impactful. A person who understands prayer approaches it with reverence, clarity, and expectation, recognizing that it is a channel for communication, transformation, and guidance. Another important dimension of a consistent prayer life is intentionality. Intentional prayer means setting aside time with focus rather than praying casually or distractedly. In a world filled with noise, distractions, and constant mental engagement, intentional prayer creates a sacred space where the mind becomes calm, and the spirit becomes receptive. This discipline gradually increases spiritual awareness, making a person more attentive to inner direction and less controlled by external pressure. Over time, prayer shifts from being an obligation to becoming a place of strength and renewal. Consistency in prayer also reshapes character. As a person regularly engages in prayer with understanding, their thoughts begin to change, their emotions become more regulated, and their reactions become more measured. Instead of responding impulsively to challenges, they develop patience and discernment. Prayer becomes a refining process that aligns attitudes, motives, and decisions with higher principles. It quietly transforms the inner life, which eventually influences outward actions and results. Furthermore, a life of consistent prayer builds spiritual resilience. Life will inevitably present delays, disappointments, and uncertainties, but prayer sustains inner strength during such seasons. Rather than collapsing under pressure, a person who prays consistently develops the ability to remain hopeful and focused. They are not easily shaken because their strength is not drawn only from circumstances, but from a deeper source of assurance. This resilience enables them to face challenges with courage instead of panic. Their understanding in prayer also involves listening, not just speaking. Many people approach prayer as a one-sided expression of needs, but effective engagement includes quiet reflection and openness to guidance. In moments of stillness, clarity often emerges and direction becomes more discernible. This listening posture deepens spiritual sensitivity and prevents decisions driven solely by emotion or urgency. It allows wisdom to shape responses rather than impulsive reactions. Another vital impact of consistent prayer is the development of faith. Each moment spent in sincere communication strengthens trust in unseen help and divine timing. Over time, this trust replaces doubt and reduces the mental burden of trying to control everything alone. Even when answers are not immediate, the act of praying with understanding nurtures confidence that one is not abandoned in their struggles. This assurance brings peace that external solutions alone cannot provide. Additionally, a disciplined prayer life creates spiritual alignment. As a person prays regularly with understanding, their desires gradually become more refined and purposeful. Self-centered requests begin to shift toward meaningful pursuits, and confusion gives way to clarity. This alignment opens the heart to wisdom and prepares the individual to receive guidance, strength, and favor in ways they may not have anticipated. When prayer becomes consistent and understanding becomes its foundation, it transforms from a desperate reaction into a powerful lifestyle of engagement. It becomes a daily source of strength, direction, and inner stability that sustains the individual through both calm and challenging seasons, ensuring that they are never spiritually disconnected, even when life feels overwhelming and uncertain. Aligning your desires with divine will is a transformative process that requires deep self-examination, spiritual maturity, and a willingness to release personal agendas that conflict with a higher purpose. Many people approach life with strong desires shaped by emotions, societal pressure, personal ambition, or immediate needs. Yet not every desire leads to fulfillment, peace, or lasting success. When desires are driven purely by impulse or comparison, they often produce frustration because they are disconnected from divine timing and purpose. True alignment begins when a person pauses and evaluates whether their pursuits are rooted in purpose or merely in temporary cravings. The human desires are powerful, but they can also be misleading when not guided by higher wisdom. A person may strongly want something that is not beneficial for their growth or destiny. And when such desires dominate decision making, they can lead to unnecessary struggles and delays. Aligning with divine will does not mean suppressing all desires. Rather, it means refining them so they reflect purpose, wisdom, and long-term significance. This refinement requires humility, because it involves accepting that not every strong desire is the right direction. One of the key aspects of alignment is surrendering control over outcomes. Many people become anxious because they are attached to specific results and timelines, believing that fulfillment must occur exactly according to their plans. This attachment creates tension, impatience, and emotional instability when things do not unfold as expected. However, when desires are aligned with divine will, the focus shifts from controlling outcomes to trusting the process. This trust brings inner calm. Even when external progress seems slow or uncertain, alignment also demands purity of intention. Motives play a significant role in determining whether a desire is aligned or misaligned. A desire fueled by pride, comparison, or selfish gain often leads to internal conflict and spiritual resistance. On the other hand, desires rooted in growth, service, and purpose create harmony within the spirit. When intentions are purified, clarity increases and decisions become less confusing. The individual begins to sense which paths bring peace and which ones create unrest, making it easier to choose wisely. Another important dimension of alignment is patience. Divine will often unfold according to a timing that differs from human urgency. Many people experience frustration not because their desires are wrong, but because their expectations are rushed. Alignment teaches patience by helping a person understand that preparation is just as important as manifestation. When desires are aligned, waiting seasons become periods of growth rather than seasons of despair. The individual learns to develop character, discipline, and wisdom while trusting that the right opportunities will emerge at the appropriate time. Aligning desires with divine will also enhance his discernment. Instead of chasing every opportunity or reacting to every emotional impulse, a person becomes more selective and intentional. They begin to evaluate decisions based on purpose rather than pressure. This discernment protects them from distractions, wrong associations, and unnecessary struggles that arise from pursuing paths that are not meant for them. It creates a sense of direction that reduces confusion and increases confidence. Furthermore, alignment produces inner peace. When a person is pursuing desires that are in harmony with divine purpose, there is a sense of calm assurance even during challenges. This peace does not mean the absence of difficulties, but it reflects an inner conviction that one is on the right path. Misaligned desires often generate restlessness, dissatisfaction, and constant striving, while aligned desires cultivate stability and contentment within the heart. Obedience is another essential factor in this process. Alignment is not only about knowing the right direction, but also about acting on it consistently. Sometimes divine guidance may require difficult adjustments, such as letting go of certain ambitions, relationships, or habits. These adjustments can feel uncomfortable, yet they create space for more meaningful outcomes. When a person chooses obedience over convenience, their life gradually shifts into a flow of purpose and grace. In addition, aligning desires with divine will strengthen faith and resilience. When setbacks occur, calm, the individual is less likely to feel defeated because their confidence is not based solely on personal ambition, but on a higher sense of direction. They become more flexible, adaptable, and hopeful, knowing that delays and redirections can still serve a greater plan. This alignment ultimately transforms how a person measures success. Instead of defining success only by speed, recognition, or material gain, they begin to value purpose, impact, and spiritual growth. Their desires evolve from temporary satisfaction to meaningful fulfillment, and their pursuits become more intentional and balanced. As this alignment deepens, life becomes less driven by pressure and more guided by wisdom, creating a journey marked by clarity, peace, and a profound sense of direction that sustains them through every season of life. Engaging faith instead of fear during battles is a conscious spiritual decision that determines how a person responds to pressure, uncertainty, and adversity. Fear is a natural human emotion that arises when situations appear overwhelming, unpredictable, or beyond control. It magnifies problems, weakens confidence, and distorts perception, causing individuals to expect negative outcomes even before events unfold. In moments of intense struggle, the fear can silently dominate the mind, shaping thoughts, emotions, and decisions in ways that lead to hesitation, anxiety, and exhaustion. Faith, on the other hand, is not the denial of challenges, but the conviction that there is a higher support system capable of guiding, strengthening, and intervening despite visible difficulties. When a person chooses faith over fear, that they shift their focus from the size of the problem to the possibility of divine assistance. Fear thrives on uncertainty and worst-case scenarios, constantly reminding the mind of potential failure, loss, and disappointment, and creates internal tension that drains energy and reduces clarity, making even simple decisions feel overwhelming. Faith interrupts this cycle by introducing trust into the equation. It reassures the heart that challenges are temporary and that solutions may exist beyond what is immediately visible. This mental and spiritual shift creates stability even when circumstances remain intense. Another important aspect of engaging faith is mental discipline. Fear often grows stronger when the mind repeatedly dwells on negative thoughts, past failures, and imagined outcomes. If left unchecked, these thoughts create a pattern of worry that affects emotional well-being and decision-making. Faith requires intentional redirection of the mind toward hope, trust, and higher possibilities. This does not mean ignoring reality, but it means refusing to let fear define the interpretation of reality. By consciously nurturing hopeful and trust-filled thoughts, the person gradually weakens the influence of fear and strengthens inner courage. Faith also strengthens emotional resilience during battles. When fear dominates, emotions become unstable, leading to panic, frustration, and impulsive reactions. This emotional instability often worsens situations because decisions made under fear are rarely strategic or balanced. Engaging faith stabilizes emotions by providing a sense of inner assurance that one is not alone in their struggles. This assurance calms the heart, allowing the individual to respond with patience and wisdom rather than reacting out of panic. Emotional stability becomes a powerful advantage in difficult seasons because it preserves clarity and endurance. Furthermore, faith enhances perseverance. Fear tends to encourage withdrawal, avoidance, or surrender when obstacles appear too strong. It convinces individuals that their efforts are useless and that outcomes are already determined by negative circumstances. Faith, however, fuels persistence. It inspires the belief that continued effort, combined with divine support, can produce change even in difficult situations. This mindset keeps a person moving forward despite delays, setbacks, or opposition. Instead of giving up prematurely, they remain committed to growth and progress. Engaging faith also opens the door to wisdom and direction. Fear narrows perception and causes individuals to act based on urgency rather than understanding. It creates mental noise that makes it difficult to recognize opportunities or guidance. Faith quiets this internal noise and creates space for clarity. When the mind is not overwhelmed by fear, it becomes more receptive to insight, creativity, and strategic thinking. This allows individuals to approach battles with a balanced perspective rather than a reactive one. Another significant dimension of faith is its ability to influence actions. A fearful mindset often leads to hesitation, procrastination, or avoidance of necessary steps, even when opportunities are present. Fear can prevent a person from acting confidently. Faith, however, encourages bold yet wise action. It empowers individuals to take necessary steps while trusting that they are supported beyond their own strength. This proactive attitude increases the likelihood of progress and breakthroughs during challenging periods. Engaging faith instead of fear also nurtures inner peace. Battles in life are not only external but also internal, and the greatest struggles often occur within the mind and heart. Fear intensifies inner conflict, while faith brings a sense of calm assurance that transcends circumstances. This peace does not eliminate challenges but transforms how they are experienced. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, the individual develops a quiet confidence that sustains them through uncertainty. Over time, consistently choosing faith reshapes one's mindset and spiritual outlook. It builds a pattern of trust that becomes stronger with each challenge faced. Past experiences of overcoming difficulties through faith reinforce the belief that future battles can also be navigated successfully. This accumulated confidence reduces the intensity of fear in future situations and strengthens overall spiritual maturity. Engaging faith during battles ultimately transforms struggle into growth and uncertainty into purposeful endurance. It empowers the individual to face adversity with courage, maintain clarity under pressure, and remain hopeful despite difficulties, allowing them to move forward with strength and assurance, rather than being controlled by the limitations that fear tries to impose on their thoughts, emotions, and actions. Developing spiritual sensitivity and obedience is a gradual process that refines how a person perceives guidance, responds to inner convictions, and aligns daily actions with higher direction. Many people desire divine help, yet they struggle to recognize how that help is communicated because their inner awareness is clouded by distractions, emotional noise, and impulsive decision-making. Spiritual sensitivity is the ability to discern subtle guidance, impressions, and corrections that often come quietly rather than dramatically. It requires stillness of mind, attentiveness of heart, and a willingness to slow down enough to recognize what is being communicated beyond surface level circumstances. In a fast-paced life filled with constant activity and information, the inner voice of guidance can easily be ignored. When the mind is overloaded with worries, comparisons, and external pressures, it becomes difficult to distinguish between fear-driven thoughts and genuine direction. Developing sensitivity begins with intentional inner quietness, where a person learns to reflect, pray, and observe their thoughts and emotions instead of reacting immediately to every situation. This discipline strengthens awareness and allows deeper clarity to emerge over time. Instead of being led by impulse, the individual becomes more thoughtful and spiritually attentive. Another crucial aspect of spiritual sensitivity is consistency in spiritual practices. Regular prayer, reflection, and meditation create an environment where the heart becomes more receptive to divine influence. Just as repeated exposure sharpens physical skills, consistent spiritual engagement sharpens discernment. Over time, a person begins to notice patterns, inner nudges, and a sense of peace or unease that helps guide their decisions. This awareness prevents many unnecessary mistakes that arise from acting purely on emotion or external pressure. Obedience is the practical expression of spiritual sensitivity. It is not enough to sense guidance. One must also be willing to act upon it. Many people receive inner direction but ignore it because it may seem inconvenient, slow, or contrary to their immediate desires. However, delayed or ignored obedience often leads to confusion and repeated struggles. When a person responds promptly and faithfully to the guidance they perceive, they strengthen their alignment and create a flow of clarity in their life. Obedience builds trust between the individual and the divine process, reinforcing their ability to receive further direction. Developing this sensitivity also requires humility. Pride resists correction and prefers self-direction, while humility remains open to instruction and redirection. A humble heart is more teachable and receptive to subtle guidance, even when it challenges personal preferences. This openness reduces inner resistance and allows a person to grow spiritually and emotionally. Instead of insisting on their own way, they become willing to adjust their actions when they sense a higher prompting, which leads to wiser decisions and fewer regrets. Another dimension of spiritual sensitivity is emotional discipline. Strong emotions such as fear, anger, or excitement can distort perception and make it difficult to discern genuine guidance. When emotions are unchecked, a person may misinterpret impulses as direction or ignore cautionary signals entirely. By cultivating emotional balance through reflection and prayer, the mind becomes calmer and more capable of accurate discernment. This balance helps distinguish between temporary feelings and deeper spiritual impressions. Obedience also strengthens character. Each time a person chooses to follow guidance rather than convenience, they develop integrity, patience, and trust. Small acts of obedience, even in seemingly minor matters, prepare the individual for greater responsibilities and clearer direction in more significant situations. Over time, this pattern creates a life that is less reactive and more purposeful, because decisions are no longer driven solely by circumstances, but by thoughtful alignment with higher wisdom. Furthermore, spiritual sensitivity enhances decision-making in complex situations. Life often presents choices that appear equally attractive or equally challenging, and logical reasoning alone may not provide complete clarity. A sensitive spirit can perceive subtle differences in peace, timing, and alignment, helping a person choose paths that lead to long-term growth rather than short-term satisfaction. This inner guidance acts as a compass, preventing unnecessary detours and helping the individual remain focused on meaningful progress. Developing sensitivity and obedience also deepens trust in divine guidance. As a person consistently responds to inner direction and observes positive outcomes, their confidence in spiritual leading increases. This trust reduces anxiety and strengthens faith during uncertain seasons. Instead of feeling lost or overwhelmed, they gain reassurance that guidance is available and accessible. Over time, this lifestyle of sensitivity and obedience transforms the entire approach to life. Actions become more intentional, reactions become more measured, and choices become more aligned with purpose. The individual becomes less controlled by external pressures and more guided by inner clarity, calm, allowing them to walk through life with greater wisdom, stability, and awareness of the subtle ways divine direction shapes their journey and growth. Maintaining persistence until help manifests is one of the most demanding yet powerful disciplines in the journey of engaging divine assistance. Many people begin with enthusiasm, faith, and expectation, but when results are delayed, their confidence weakens and their consistency fades. The reality is that not every answer appears instantly, and not every breakthrough happens at the first attempt. Persistence is the strength to remain steady in belief, prayer, and right action, even when visible evidence has not yet appeared. It is the refusal to abandon trust simply because timing feels slow. Delay often tests the depth of conviction. When a person prays or believes for change and nothing seems to shift immediately, doubt begins to whisper. The mind starts questioning whether the effort is worthwhile, whether help is truly coming, or whether the struggle will ever end. This internal battle can be more intense than the external challenge itself. Persistence requires managing these thoughts carefully, refusing to let temporary silence translate into permanent discouragement. It demands emotional stability and spiritual discipline to continue engaging faithfully even without immediate feedback. Another important dimension of persistence is consistency in action. Waiting for help does not mean becoming passive or inactive. It involves continuing to take wise, purposeful steps while trusting that divine intervention is working beyond what is visible. Many breakthroughs occur because someone refused to quit their disciplined habits, their prayers, or their integrity during seasons of uncertainty. Persistence keeps the individual aligned and prepared so that when help manifests, they are ready to receive and sustain it. Persistence also strengthens character. Quick results can bring relief, but delayed results build endurance. When a person continues believing and acting rightly despite delays, they develop patience, resilience, and maturity. These qualities are often more valuable than the immediate solution they seek. Through persistence, the individual learns to control frustration, manage expectations, and maintain hope under pressure. This inner growth ensures that when the answer finally arrives, they possess the stability to handle it wisely. There is also a refining process that occurs during prolonged waiting. Persistence exposes hidden weaknesses such as impatience, fear, or pride. As these weaknesses surface, the individual has an opportunity to address and overcome them. Instead of seeing delay as rejection, they begin to recognize it as preparation. This shift in perspective transforms waiting from a painful pause into a meaningful process of growth. The journey itself becomes as important as the destination. Maintaining persistence requires protecting one's mindset. Negative voices, comparisons, and repeated disappointments can gradually erode confidence. A persistent person guards their thoughts carefully. They are choosing to rehearse past victories and reminders of faithfulness rather than focusing solely on present obstacles. By reinforcing positive belief patterns, they prevent discouragement from taking root. This mental discipline sustains momentum, even when circumstances appear unchanged. Community and support also play a role in persistence. Isolation can magnify doubt, but encouragement strengthens resolve. Surrounding oneself with people who inspire faith and perseverance can reinforce commitment during difficult seasons. Even when internal strength feels weak, external encouragement can renew determination and keep the individual engaged in their pursuit of help and breakthrough. Persistence also demonstrates trust in divine. Human nature prefers immediate gratification, yet many meaningful outcomes unfold gradually. When a person persists, they communicate confidence that the process has purpose, even if they do not fully understand it. This trust reduces anxiety and replaces it with steady expectation. Instead of constantly checking for signs or becoming restless, they continue their engagement calmly and faithfully. Another vital aspect of persistence is gratitude during the process. A thankful heart prevents bitterness from developing while waiting. By recognizing small signs of progress, lessons learned, and strength gained, the individual maintains a positive outlook. Gratitude shifts attention from what has not yet happened to what is already unfolding internally and externally. Over time, persistence builds unshakable confidence. Each season of waiting that ends in eventual manifestation reinforces the belief that perseverance is never wasted. The memory of previous breakthroughs becomes fuel for future endurance. This accumulated confidence transforms the individual into someone who is not easily discouraged by delay, because they understand that manifestation often follows sustained engagement. Maintaining persistence until help manifests ultimately turns waiting into empowerment. It shapes a resilient spirit, a disciplined mind, and a hopeful heart that refuses to surrender to temporary silence. Through unwavering faith, consistent action, emotional stability, and guarded thoughts, the individual remains firmly positioned for breakthrough, demonstrating that true strength is revealed not in quick victories, but in the steadfast commitment to continue believing and engaging until the desired help becomes reality. In conclusion, the journey of engaging divine help is not about abandoning effort, but about refusing to fight life's battles in isolation. It begins with the humility to recognize personal limitations, the discipline to build a consistent and understanding prayer life, and the wisdom to align one's desires with a higher purpose. As faith replaces fear, the heart becomes stable even in adversity, and as spiritual sensitivity and obedience develop, guidance becomes clearer and decisions become more purposeful. Through persistence, even in seasons of delay, inner strength is refined and trust is deepened, preparing the individual for the manifestation of help in its appointed time. Life's greatest victories are rarely achieved by human strength alone. They are achieved through conscious partnership with divine assistance. When a person stops relying solely on their own understanding and begins to engage prayer, faith, alignment, sensitivity, and persistence, they shift from struggle to support, from confusion to clarity, and from exhaustion to renewed strength. Challenges may still arise, but they no longer carry the same weight because the individual is no longer standing alone in the battle. True transformation occurs when dependence replaces pride, consistency replaces emotional reactions, and trust replaces anxiety. This lifestyle of spiritual engagement creates inner peace, resilience, and direction that sustain a person through every season of life. Instead of being overwhelmed by pressure, they become anchored in assurance, knowing that help is not distant but accessible through intentional alignment and faithful engagement. Ultimately, the message is clear: stop fighting alone. Engage divine help with understanding, remain steadfast in faith, and walk in obedience and persistence. When these principles become a lifestyle, unseen strength begins to support visible effort, silent guidance begins to shape daily decisions, and breakthroughs that once seemed impossible gradually become reality, marking a life that is no longer driven by struggle but sustained by divine partnership and purposeful direction.